Welcome, everybody, to our second iteration of our web series on the UTC ARMOR platform and the program that we've developed. We really like to thank you for tuning in. We're excited to continue discussing the importance of supply chain security for utilities and how UTC ARMOR addresses these evolving changes. We'll share how our UTC ARMOR solution leverages the internationally recognized standard ISA, IEC 62443 standards, helping utilities assess their vendors against the highest cybersecurity benchmarks. I'm going to walk through some of the key features and the unique value of the ARMOR program brings to utilities and the energy vendors again. So I wanted to go over, this is very interesting. I wanted to post this, that Secretary Wright, Chris Wright of the Department of Energy signed his first secretarial order directing the Department of Energy to take immediate action to unleash the American energy in accordance with President Trump's executive order. The key thing here is that it highlighted the importance of supply chain security. We know that industry processes for evaluating third-party risk are inconsistent. We've seen FERC directing industry improvements for verification and transparency. Best practices exist, but are inconsistently applied. Supplier data requests and questionnaires are varied, leading to inefficiency. The ARMOR program and the Cumulys platform aim to standardize attestations, verifications, and certifications. The ARMOR program and the Cumulys platform represent a new approach to supply chain security, addressing critical gaps by moving the industry to a structured attestation, structured independent verifications, and certifications. Our platform supports regulatory compliance and focuses on building transparency and trust, which utilities can rely on for secure, efficient, verifications or certifications. ARMOR brings utilities and vendors together under one shared commitment to cybersecurity, making this partnership in protecting the supply chain through rigorous attestations and independent validations. The ARMOR program achieves economies of scale by vendors completing one single certification that multiple utilities can rely on. It reduces the need for repeat vendor assessments, saving time and resources. Utilities get quicker access to verified cybersecurity data, improving decision-making, and a shared approach promotes consistency and enhances overall supply chain security. The ARMOR program aligns with trusted industry standards, essential to credible, rigorous attestations, independent verifications, and certifications for the energy sector. We've incorporated frameworks like the NIST Secure Software Development Framework, the NATF questionnaire, and ISA Secures IEC 62443 for industrial control systems, ensuring we meet international certification benchmarks. Executive Order 13920, which addresses protection from foreign threats, also guides our compliance efforts, helping UTC ARMOR stay aligned with federal mandates. The ARMOR program takes a unique approach to data ownership and transparency, addressing concerns often arising in third-party attestations, third-party independent verifications, and third-party certifications. With our program, vendors retain complete control over their data related to attestations, verifications, and certifications. They decide when and how it is shared, offering a significant advantage over traditional models. The UTC ARMOR program notifies vendors when a utility accesses their data, reinforcing trust and security around sensitive compliance information. To ensure objectivity, The ARMOR program relies on third-party assessments conducted by accredited bodies, particularly those certified in standards like ISA Secures IEC 62443. The independence gives utilities confidence in the reliability and accuracy of their vendor compliance data, as assessments are free from conflicts of interest. Software bill of materials is our next SBOM assessments. We collaborate with partners specializing in software security to stay up to date with best practices in supply chain security. Each year, the UTC ARMOR program provides updated certification information for vendors, allowing utilities access to the most recent attestations and validations. This ensures that vendors' credentials are always up to date, supporting a secure and compliant supply chain. The program updates software bill of materials, SBOMs, quarterly, capturing any changes in software components. This regular update process enables utilities to monitor for potential risk associated with software modifications, helping them maintain high software integrity and security standards. With timely and accurate data access, utilities can make informed, proactive decisions about their supply chain. This includes responding to emerging risk or adjusting vendor engagements based on the latest certifications and compliance information. Suppliers have the flexibility to update their supply chain data whenever necessary. This freedom allows them to reflect any new compliance measures or security enhancements, ensuring utilities always see the most current data for vendor evaluations. The ARMOR program is designed to support 3 key user roles. 2 of them are active at this point: suppliers, utilities, and assessors, which will be brought on in the upcoming months, each with specific roles and responsibilities. Utilities get a clear view of vendor compliance, allowing them to make informed supply chain decisions. Suppliers maintain control over their data and have full visibility into how and when their data is shared. When assessors do come on board, the role that they will play will be crucial as impartial, independent evaluators, ensuring that standards and consistency are applied and upheld across the board. To summarize, the UTC ARMOR program is a scalable approach to compliance, allowing us to reduce cost, align with respected industry standards, and prioritize vendor control over assessment data. Our quarterly updates strengthen trust in the data utilities rely on, and the platform's independent assessments and role structure ensure transparency and fairness. In the end, UTC ARMOR program is about building a secure and resilient ecosystem for the energy sector, supporting trust and partnership at every level of the supply chain. Next, I would like to introduce Andre, who will go ahead and speak on ISA Secure's role in the ARMOR program. Go ahead, Andre.
Thank you, Cordell. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
All right, thanks. So the ISA Secure program was stood up by the International Society of Automation. They're the place where the international standards ISA, IEC are drafted in our committee process. We were established in 2007, and we've been certifying products since 2010. We're led by a governing board of thought leaders from the major automation suppliers and asset owners. So next slide, please. So this is a partial list of the participants supporting this program. We're organized We don't actually do the certifications ourselves. We're the scheme owner. And so we've established our scheme based on international standards for product certification. So we have agreements with ISO 17011 accreditation authorities. This includes ANSI ANAB in the US, A2LA, and about 7 or 8 others around the globe. DAX in Germany, Japan Accreditation Board in Japan, Standards Council of Canada, and also in Taiwan and Singapore. Our certification bodies we have about 15 of them online, and they're all over the globe. They certify to the international standards, and again, they're accredited to ISO 17065 for product certifiers, and ensures independence and credibility. They're audited on an annual basis in addition to their initial audits. Certification bodies include UL, TUV Rhineland, Exida, CSSC in Japan, Bureau Veritas, TUV Sud, AC&E, and BIHOME, both from out of Italy. We have other certification bodies coming on board shortly. Next slide, please. So it's just a list of an example list of certified products. You can go to our website, www.isasecure.org. All these certificates of conformance, when issued, we post them on our website. It's mandatory for all the certified suppliers to post on our website. And we're happy that we're able to enter into an agreement with UTC to help with the ARMOR program, and by agreeing to repost our certificates of conformance on the UTC website for convenience to be included in their database of supplier information. Next slide, please. So the product certifications currently available are showing in yellow. The first one is a component security assurance, and that certifies embedded devices, network devices, application software, and host devices. That would be like Linux and Windows workstations. And the system security assurance certifies products like distributed control systems, SCADA systems, and others. It's more comprehensive and addresses system level security. And then the security development lifecycle assurance that certifies the product suppliers' development practices to ensure that they are conformant to the 62443-4-1 development practice standard. This is a prerequisite. The supplier must be certified to the SDLA, the development lifecycle standard, to be able to achieve the certs for the components and systems that they produce. Next slide, please. So, yeah, I mentioned we're collaborating with UTC. We're working with other industry groups like SEMI in Taiwan to establish a certification program for their fab equipment. We're collaborating with other industry groups like NATF. We collaborate with government entities here in the US, in particular DHS, CISA, DOE, and then the labs, the national labs like NREL, INL, and we're collaborating with ITRI in Taiwan. So we have our standard set of certification specifications, but we also stand ready to work with UTC and electric sector in the event that we need to establish a sector-specific profile or multiple profiles for use in this space. Next slide, please. So I'll just shortly describe each of the certifications. So the Secure Development Lifecycle Assurance addresses 8 practice areas in product development. Practice area 1 is security management. That's like config management, and includes a requirement to do a threat analysis for your product for its intended use in the marketplace. Then specification of security requirements, security capabilities by security level. The standard does define 4 security levels. They're pretty well articulated. But for the process development, it's a maturity measure. For the products, it's a security level measure. So it also addresses secure by design and secure implementation, which is like coding practices, etc. And then security verification and validation addresses things like separations of duties, types of testing. So the standard itself requires like static and binary code analysis, insurance that there's regression analysis, communication robustness testing, Nessus scans, and 1 or 2 other categories of testing. And there's management of security related issues like incident management, and there are metrics related to that. So suppliers are required to have a defined incident response plan if in the event that their product's involved in some type of a security incident. There is a requirement that's called software inventory, or I'm sorry, product inventory. So that includes the hardware, software, and then also compilers and test tools and operating systems. So everything that goes into a product has to be on an inventory list. So one of the things that's been emphasized recently is software bills of material. So in that space where we're talking about inventorying the software dimension of these products, the SBOMs would fit into that. That's an approach for doing that. There's also practices for security update management. The standard defines updates versus upgrades and has requirements for management of change. Updates would be things like bug patches, that sort of thing. Upgrades are like version upgrades. And lastly, security guidelines. So the product has to have implementation and update guidelines, how to install, how to use, how to maintain, and how to integrate. So these are all the development lifecycle requirements. They're pretty comprehensive and robust. We've done comparisons to SSDF. It maps to it pretty well. Since this is more of an industrial standard, we don't address as much of the privacy side of things that SSDF does, but we find that it's pretty close alignment. Next slide, please. So the component security assurance and the system level certification has 3 dimensions to them. So the supplier must have a declared security development life cycle for the scope of that includes the products. And when we're evaluating a specific product, we look for development artifacts to confirm that the life cycle practices were followed for that product specifically. So then we do a functional security assessment. So the 4-2, 62443 4-2 standard, which applies to the components, has about 120 security capabilities that are defined for levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. So like level 1, there's about 50 requirements. Level 2, it gets up to about 80. Level 3, there's about 100 requirements, and then level 4 has about 20 additional ones. So depending on the security level that the product submitted to, let's say it's security level 2 and there's 80 requirements, so we do an audit to confirm that that product has those security capabilities. And then the only independent testing that we do at this point is we do Nessus scans to look for known vulnerabilities. And so we test against the US CERT National Vulnerability Database. Product suppliers are required to do that as part of their testing and release process anyway, but Most of the testing that's done by the product suppliers, we audit that. It provides efficiencies and cost efficiencies. We don't try to duplicate what the supplier's already done. You know, we just audit the artifacts to confirm that they were done properly. Next slide. So I think this should be the last one in my part of the presentation. So this is a system level certification for, like I said, for like a control system for, you know, it could be for transmission, distribution, that sort of thing, distributed control systems, SCADA systems. It's from a process perspective, it's similar to the component certification. We look at this security development life cycle. There are some additional requirements for system level life cycle requirements that are over and above the component level. We do the functional security assessment at the system level to the 4 security levels defined, and we also do the vulnerability identification test. So it's very much parallels the 4-2 component cert, but we use the 3-3 security for industrial control systems for this one. Next slide. I think that was my last slide. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. I'd like to go ahead and introduce Tobias Whitney from Cumulys Platforms. Tobias,
Okay.
can you? All right, you're there.
Yeah, all right. So thank you, Cordell. Thank you, Andre. I'm Tobias Whitney, CEO of Cumulys. I wanted to take a step back before I got into some of the rest of the slides, as for everyone to kind of get a better sense for why UTC and Cumulys partnered together with ISA to build this environment. There's a recognition that, you know, there's quite a few challenges and frankly, limitations in visibility and understanding the requirements and security between asset owners and operators, and their associated product suppliers. So we wanted to make sure that that visibility was maximized in an environment that was impartial. There's no gotchas here. We're not going through the process of trying to shock vendors or suppliers, to surprise them with vulnerability reports. We want them to be able to understand what are the requirements in terms of standards and best practices that asset owners are looking for, and then vice versa, be able to provide an environment that asset owners, when they're looking at buying a new product or partnering with a new vendor, that there's a one-stop shop to go to ensure that vendors are meeting a number of industry best practices. So that's what really this is about. It's about a combination of recognizing various industry practices. What you'll see here is what you've already seen quite a bit already in the conversation with Andre, is leveraging recognized international standards that ISA brings to the table. And when we mean international standards, is the ability for vendors to be able to showcase that they are investing in the right types of security activities within their organization in terms of their security practices, but more importantly, in terms of their products and services that they offer to the electric power and utility space. So that's a lot of why this environment was built in the manner in which that it is. So we're happy to share those details with you in terms of how the system, in my particular portion of the presentation, how the system itself will facilitate this information sharing environment. So with that being said, I'm going to start with just a video of the application for you guys to get a sense for how the application and the information environment for sharing works. And then I'll get into the details of each of the vendor level evaluations and product level evaluations so that you can have a good sense for the information sharing environment. So let me start with this. Okay.
Your journey starts with an invitation from the UTC ARMOR exchange host. With a few simple steps, your account is created and you are able to add organization details and service areas. You can follow existing suppliers or invite new ones that are already not in the program. The UTC will approve the invitations, and the suppliers will receive the invite to participate. The Partners page gives you access to a list of registered suppliers with insights into their certifications, products, and geopolitical attestation. You can request certifications from suppliers and use the Message Center for other communications, making collaboration simple and efficient, helping you build meaningful partnerships in the UTC ARMOR exchange.
Okay. Hopefully that was useful. It was super short. I know that in the middle of webinars, folks don't always love a pause for going over a video. There's an additional vendor video I'd like to share a little bit later in the presentation. It's also super short, but I wanted you to get at least an understanding of what the utility perspective is. And Cordell, if you wouldn't mind maybe transitioning back to the slides, if you will. And then a little bit later in the presentation, I'll give you a sense for the vendor's journey and how they interact with the information sharing environment. Next slide, please. And by the way, I'm seeing the speaker notes, not the full version.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Next slide, please.
Hold on, Tobias.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So as was mentioned, there are basically three parts to the ARMOR program. First is the vendor level certification, which provides information about how the vendor meets a number of industry standards as it relates to their enterprise level of cybersecurity efforts. So if you look at this is building on the work that industry has already done. So if you notice, hopefully recognize acronyms here and recognize organizations, which is the NATF, North American Transmission Forum Questionnaire and Attestation. That is a recognized survey that the vendors can complete on a voluntary basis. That survey is also recognized by NERC, North American Electric Reliability Corporation, for compliance for asset owners' efforts to SIP 13. What's important about that is that this is a process that has been vetted and also endorsed as the implementation guide for effective means, effective examples to comply with the supply chain standard as it is today. The NIST Software Security Development Framework attestation is something that we've seen predominantly in the government space. It's not something that is required within the electric power space or critical infrastructure private industry. However, we are bringing this attestation into the ARMOR program because we want those organizations, especially those vendors that have multiple types of asset owners and customers that they serve, whether they're utilities, oil or water utilities or electric utilities, and they also have government customers. This is something that will benefit both critical infrastructure and those organizations that serve the federal government. That is based on the NIST Software Security Development Framework and an attestation that's associated with that. The next piece is a geopolitical risk attestation. This gets into a number of questions about the vendor's overall relationship within various nations across the globe, which we'll talk a little bit more about in subsequent slides. The second level of certification, if you will, comes into view around the product assessment area. So if you think about it from an asset owner perspective, you're buying a new product, you're evaluating a new product that might fit within your OT environment or your generation facility or substation facility, and you're trying to make sure that that system, the product that you're purchasing, comports with a number of your existing organizational requirements. As many of you know, the NERC CIP standards are applicable to only those registered entities, those asset owners and operators that are associated with the reliable operations of the grid, but they aren't necessarily a corollary or an equivalent set of standards that are applicable to the vendor community. So what the ARMOR program seeks to do is to help put some context around various product industry best practices, product security best practices, and put a wrapper around what those practices are, communicate to the asset owners to make sure that they understand the relationship with those best practices and how they can use the information of the product assessments to make better informed decisions about the technologies and systems that they plan to purchase and ultimately maintain and implement within their control systems and related environments. It's not just OT specific. However, that is the core of most of the activities within the ARMOR program. So as you can see here, there's a big piece recognizing the IEC 62443, ISA 62443 standards. As you notice, there's a lot of information about Part 3-3 and 4-2 and 4-1. Andre went over that in great detail. Suffice it to say, when you're determining a product to evaluate from an asset owner's perspective, the platform will help you get a better understanding of which of those ISA certifications the vendor has already maybe achieved, or you can go in the platform and determine what types of certifications you would like to learn more about as to whether or not that vendor is meeting those industry best practices. So that's the first part, a recognition of the 62443 standards as they address a number of industry best practices from an independent verification perspective. The second part of the ARMOR product assessment is a quarterly review of software bill of materials. So many of you have probably been following the work of Idaho National Labs and organizations within the federal government that are trying to get greater visibility into software. A lot of the SBOM activities originated from the previous item I discussed in the software security development framework attestation by NIST. But also there was some work done by Idaho National Labs and others and DHS to help industry understand the benefits of understanding the components within the software and the technologies that you're purchasing. For the SBOM, I just want to make sure a couple of things are clear. The SBOM is protected by the vendor. You may request access to the detailed report, but a summary report will be accessible on a quarterly basis for those products within the ARMOR program. And then there's another geopolitical risk attestation that I do want to differentiate from the enterprise one that's going to be conducted at the product level. So you'll know as you're evaluating the product, what is the product's provenance, meaning understanding the various sources of where the product may have been originating from. Was it produced domestically? Was it produced abroad? There's a lot of attention politically swirling around where products and goods are being purchased for various reasons. Not going to get into those details, but the point is here, though, is to give the asset owners and the vendor community an understanding of those types of controls and considerations that industry may have about the origins and the relationships that vendors have with certain nations across the globe. So that survey is a core piece of understanding where the product is being produced for that's currently in question. So those are the first two levels of the ARMOR program, if you will, a vendor level certification, get better understanding of the vendor. Product level assessments and certification is to gain a better understanding of the product security controls that you can expect when you purchase that product and ultimately implement it in your environment. The utilities, if you look at number 3 on this list, have access to those pieces of information. They ultimately can request NATF questionnaires or attestations. They can request any of the information that I've listed in the vendor and or product assessment areas. One of the things I want to make clear is that when you follow certain vendors that are most interested, that you're most interested in following, you can start through the platform and through the ARMOR program, you can start requesting information about these certifications. Through working in this industry as long as I've had, spent over 25 years in the space. I spent a lot of time working in the vendor community, some years at General Electric, also some time at Burns & McDonnell, as well as some time at NERC. The challenges that we typically see when we're working with utilities and vendors is that there is not always transparency in the information that goes back and forth between those organizations. We want to try to help maximize that transparency, but we're doing it in a smart and secure way. If there's information that the vendor thinks is too specific, that information is not included in the platform. However, we are providing significant value by providing simple ways for the utility to simply request for the information and for the vendors to have, again, visibility and who those requests are coming from, so they can get a better sense of hopefully a better sense of the types of security controls that the utility industry is looking for, and then they can start making adjustments and improvements to their security of their products and platforms in a way that helps them better engage their market. Next slide. So when we went over the highlights of the vendor certification, there are just a couple of things I wanted to add that I didn't make clear in the initial overview. First, I did want to focus on the NATF Energy Sector Supply Chain Risk Questionnaire. Even though that is the first step within the vendor or enterprise certification, we're not solely dependent on ensuring that the vendor completes that NATF questionnaire. There are a number of enterprise cybersecurity best practices and standards and certifications that vendors can recognize, that can be recognized by vendors. And we ultimately want the utilities to see that what these standards are, and also be able to engage whether or not these certifications are comporting with many of the controls and checklists that they need to complete when they're onboarding a vendor or doing their due diligence reviews of a particular supplier. So you'll notice a number here. I won't list them all, but when you request information about a vendor through the ARMOR program, the vendor has an opportunity to either provide you the NATF questionnaire, or they can provide the results or certification results of the following different types of standards and certifications that are made available to them. So you can see the ISO 27000, FedRAMP, obviously the 62443, not only the product level standards, but also the development lifecycle standards as well. So one thing I just want to make sure that was very, very clear, even though we're anchoring on the NATF Sector Supply Chain Risk Questionnaire, that there's a number of internationally and other recognized standards that can be communicated to meet the first level of the vendor certification within the ARMOR program. Next slide. The second piece, as I mentioned, the secure software development attestation form. That's a key piece. We want to make sure that as many of our vendors are serving the electric sector and the utility sector, that there is some visibility in what's required for federal agencies. If you're working with the federal government, this is not anything net new. It's associated with Executive Order 14028 and the work done by NIST in developing secure development practices. In the platform itself, you have links to go to the source of these particular best practices and standards in this case to learn more about the attestation there. The next step, the third requirement is the geopolitical risk survey, where at this point, what we're looking for is answers as it relates to recognizing where you have manufacturing facilities, locations of assembly, where you may have software development locations. If you have software developers, that actually comes out in the product level survey, and other international sourcing considerations. The one thing I'll emphasize here in the geopolitical risk survey is that when you're completing that survey, and one of the first steps that we're asking, especially existing UTC members that are vendors and suppliers, those UTC vendors and suppliers, that when they go through the geopolitical risk survey, that they identify a particular question in the survey that's asking about your geopolitical relationships with a number of Department of Commerce, what we'll call sensitive organizations or embargoed organizations. So organizations such as Huawei or ZTE or TikTok or things of that nature that have been limited for the federal government have put discouraging communication about those particular companies being engaged in certain business operational activities within the United States. So we're going to ask that you look at that list. It's a pretty all-encompassing list that is maintained by the Department of Commerce, and ask if you have any relationships there, just disclose them. There's no gotchas here, but we are trying to be as transparent as possible through the attestation process to allow for asset owners to take that into account. Okay, you have a design partnership with Huawei that ended in 2004 and it no longer is impacting your operations for a particular product. That kind of information is really good to know. We don't want to be in a situation where the asset owner is making a purchase decision about a particular technology and then something comes up about a relationship with a potentially banned organization, and then there's no transparency and documentation and due diligence around why that relationship exists. Again, we're just providing transparency as up to the individual asset owners to make a determination of how they want to use this information, but the information is requested that you complete. Next slide, please. So the product certification, as I mentioned, is also 3 layers, if you will. So we mentioned the first layer. This is a lot of focus in and around IEC 62443. We're going to have a webinar in April that goes over the comparisons and the simulation, the similarities between 62443 and the NERC CIP standards. As I mentioned before, the NERC CIP standards are obviously applicable to registered entities. 62443 internationally recognized standards are standards that a supplier or a vendor that makes an industrial control system can demonstrate compliance to. By the way, there is a significant amount of overlap between the industrial control cybersecurity standards that are in 62443 and the technical controls required in CIP. So if you put those 2 standards together, you buy a new product that is 62443 certified, you will ultimately be getting a system that is already shrink wrapped and ready to go for your ability as an asset owner to maintain CIP compliance to said asset. So that's why there is quite a bit of focus around 62443. Andre and Cordell will get into later in the presentation in the next 10 minutes what some of the upcoming webinars are to help provide you more information about that relationship between NERC, the NERC CIP standards and 62443 in and of itself. The second level is about SBOMs, the National Telecommunications Information Administration, as well as DHS and other organizations have worked together to develop a series of industry best practices. We're not at the point where these are formally required yet, I shall say. There is interest around formalizing more and more standards in and around software bill of materials. We're simply asking that the SBOMs are produced. There's a summary report that the asset owners will be able to request access to for the suppliers participating in that. And all that we ask for is that the suppliers maintain that on a quarterly basis so that the asset owners, not only in their procurement activities, have an understanding of what those bills of materials, the components within the software have potential vulnerabilities, but they also, for the technologies that they already have purchased, they can have a good understanding of what has changed in the purchase software from time to time, periodically. So for folks that have to manage configuration management requirements within the NERC CIP standards, updates and to patches and things of that nature, you might want to confirm the bills of materials before you implement the technology. This could be a source for you for those that want to have that level of granular understanding of the technology through the bill of material effort. So that's the second level of requirement for the product level certification. And then lastly is a geopolitical risk survey. Again, this is to help you understand from an asset owner's perspective where the whereabouts and origins and provenance of various technologies that are being used. And specifically, it'll give you some indication of whether or not the manufacturing was from a particular country, where software developers resided when they developed the software, and again, if there's any relationships with embargoed companies associated with the Department of Commerce. Next slide, please. So there are three roles within the ARMOR program. As you saw through the quick video that I showed earlier, there's three basic functions. One is the partners, which we've talked quite a bit about. That's the vendors and the suppliers and the certifications and standards that they meet. There's the independent assessors. As we mentioned, that area is growing. Right now, the main independent assessors that we work with is the folks that are associated with 62443 and the related certification bodies associated with that program. We also have independent assessors that are doing SBOM evaluations for us as well. A company called Finite State that has done quite a bit of work in this community. And then lastly, the utilities have the ability to log in and be able to peruse information about the vendors and suppliers and the independent assessments that are being done for technologies here. Next slide. So when you log in as a utility, you'll be able to see a number of the UTC members. You'll also see the status of their certification through badges. We're working on a number of different badges through a badging system. So if any of you video game environments, the idea here is the more badges that you see is the more conformance that we've seen from that particular vendor to a number of industry best practices and standards. And then ultimately, when someone meets a new badge, a supplier or a vendor has a new certification, a new standard or attestation that is completed, that information will be shared to the UTC community. So you'll always know as a utility where certain vendors are meeting standards. You'll get notifications and vice versa. If you are looking at a particular vendor to work with, you don't see a badge that you're looking for, you know, hey, I'm looking at this new substation, data concentrator, a gateway of something along those lines. You're looking for whether or not that data concentrator is meeting some of the standards that you would like it to meet. You can type information to that particular supplier and understand whether or not they have a certification that you think would fit or comport what you're looking to what you're looking for internally. If not, you can request any of the six levels of information, either at the vendor or the product level that the ARMOR program provides. Next slide, please. Also, as a utility, the one thing that we'll ask for those that are part of UTC, and if you're not part of UTC yet, definitely recommend you reach out to Cordell and the team. This program is not exclusively for UTC members. However, as we started out this year, and the existing participants, all intents and purposes, are existing UTC members now. But as you begin claiming your environment, and for those utilities that haven't claimed their environment yet, I just want to emphasize that each and every single UTC member has an account already for the ARMOR program. And all you have to do at this point is contact Cordell, or you'll also receive an email over the next few weeks reminding you to go and claim your page within the UTC environment. There's just a few things for a utility for you to do. And one of those things is to pick at least 10 suppliers to follow. So if you have 10 suppliers or even more, I know 10 is not a huge number, but if you have suppliers that you're interested in following in terms of understanding their cybersecurity, their journey as it relates to meeting a number of these industry best practices, please pick those organizations. You're not limited to 10. You're not limited to any number. You can pick as many that you'd want to follow, and you have the ability, again, to communicate on the one-to-one basis. Cordell and others from the UTC team will be doing group communication communication. So if we start seeing a number of utilities that are working with a particular supplier, and there's some opportunities for lessons learned there, we might through the UTC steering committees kind of help with facilitating any challenges that we're seeing here. Another thing I wanted to mention is that this platform provides quite a bit of capabilities for economies of scale. I've worked with a number of utilities and said, hey, I'm trying to get information from XYZ supplier. I just don't think those guys are going to listen to me. I'm just a relatively small utility. Why would they go out of their way to maybe change something in their processes and procedures for me? Because I'm just not that high on the totem pole in terms of their customer list. One thing I will say is that when we see those types of things within the platform, we're encouraging, multiple utilities. If they're starting to ask the same information of particular suppliers, UTC will also help in facilitating communications. Maybe the supplier didn't know that they had 15 utilities. They're all asking them the same information, and we're not sure how to go about getting it. So we want to help facilitating that, and we want to help make sure that those suppliers that are meeting industry best practices have every opportunity to have those best practices displayed within the environment and the secure environment the best way possible. So I did want to make sure that was clear. Next slide, please. So I did mention a bit about the geopolitical risks. Again, I'm not trying to make any statements about that. We just know that Build America, Buy America is still something that is of importance to this industry. But we also want to recognize that many of our vendors are working in a global fashion, and we'll do our best to maintain this information. The suppliers are required as part of their ARMOR process to maintain their geopolitical risk information, at least at the enterprise level, on a yearly basis. At least at a yearly basis, or even more often. So you'll understand if they closed a manufacturing facility in Italy and they opened it in Mexico or something along those lines. You'll get updates as to significant information has changed along those lines. So again, from a third-party risk and procurement perspective, you will have the latest and greatest through the platform. Next slide, please. So I will wrap up the overview on this slide. I just wanted to encourage everyone. There's a couple of videos. I only showed the first one, but there's another video for the vendor community. We're gonna post those to the UTC ARMOR website, so you guys can look at that, get a sense for how to interact with this environment. These slides will also be posted there as well. As you can see here, the whole idea is to provide as much transparency as possible, but by respecting the security of the vendors and the suppliers that are participating in this. Each of the vendors, I want to emphasize, have the ability to share globally certain aspects of their ARMOR certifications, whether that's at the vendor level, at the product level, to any user within the ARMOR program, or excuse me, any asset owner within the ARMOR program. Vendors are not sharing information with other vendors. I'll make that clear. That information that doesn't that's not allowed within the platform. But asset owner sharing information to vendors, and vendors sharing information back to asset owners, that is the ultimate focus of the platform. But the vendor has the ultimate say as to what they share. There's like a little eyeball icon associated with all the aspects of information. As you can see, there's 6 different quadrants of information that can be shared, and the supplier has the ability to provide global access to each one of those sub pieces of information, or only allow for access upon request. And then the supplier will provide that as long as you're following them and you provide the request through the messaging feature within the platform. So I will pause there. I'm super excited about the program and supporting Cordell and Andre and UTC and ISA and this great example of information sharing with an industry. Our goal is not merely to sit back and admire the challenge, but to really lean in and provide value to industry. So I'll leave it there, Cordell. If you feel free to take it from there.
Yeah, thank you, Tobias. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just want to, we have a few minutes left, so there's some key parts in our call to action. So one of the things that we want to emphasize for utility members is starting March 11th, UTC members will begin receiving invitations to participate and set up their profiles on the UTC ARMOR platform. Remember, like Tobias mentioned, first action would be to add a minimum of 10 vendors to your profile. Ongoing tasks would be to identify risk, identify and request security assessments and certifications you require for the supplier community. The registration process is free and clear instructions are provided upon the UTC invitation. For our vendors, complete your profile and begin compliance. Starting now, existing UTC members may register on the UTC ARMOR platform. Complete your geopolitical risk survey by June 2nd. Complete the UTC ARMOR vendor certification and maintain it annually. Identify products for ISA Secure IEC 62443 certification and stay responsive. This one is really big because you need to have a group of people or an admin that monitors the platform. You will get alerts, but utilities will reach out constantly for information regarding your products. Some of the upcoming, like Tobias and Andre mentioned, ISA webinar looking at the NERC SIPs versus the ISA 62443 analysis. That is April 2nd at 11 a.m. Eastern time. This will be on the ARMOR page. There will also be another webinar on April 9th, vendor and product certification use cases. And lastly, in June 16th through the 19th, the UTC Telecom and Technology Conference in Long Beach, California. You can find information about that on the ARMOR, on the UTC page. We will be doing it big out there at the annual conference. So we'll have a lot of our members that have joined. Hopefully they will be on display. Also, you will be able to come and speak with us in person there as well. We definitely want to thank you for your time that you've spent with us over this past hour. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Back to you, Cynthia, if you have anything.
Thanks, Cordell. Just another reminder that the presentation slides and recording will be available in Networks and as well as the UTC ARMOR website. Once again, I want to thank our speakers, Cordell Briggs, Andre Ristano, and Tobias Whitney for their very informative presentation. And thank you all for attending the webinar. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.